I inherited something I wasn't meant to touch. My grandfather died on a Monday. There wasn't much of a funeral. Just me, my mum, a minister he didn't know, and a few neighbors pretending they'd stayed in touch. The kind of burial where the only sounds are damp soil and cheap shoes on wet grass. No hymns or speeches, just quiet, light rain. He didn't have much family left. I guess that left me a half-remembered grandson he hadn't seen in years. My mother never let me visit him when I was younger for reasons I now understand. Aside from a couple awkward phone calls and a Christmas visit where he barely looked at me, we didn't talk. Not because he was cruel or anything, just hollowed out. Like whatever was inside of him had been thinned out over time. He worked salvage in the 1970s, marine recovery, according to his dive logs, dozens of vessels, hundreds of entries. Some of the pages were water damaged in a way that didn't quite match the rest. The nurse told me he died quietly in his sleep, without pain or confusion. They were wrong about that part. The day after the funeral, a package arrived. There was nothing on it other than my name, printed neatly in the center. Inside I found a cold ring wrapped in a torn piece of paper. Nothing else, no note, explanation or mention of my grandfather. But I knew, somehow I knew it, was from him. The ring looked handmade. Crude brass, no engraving, just a faint wave pattern around the outer band, as if someone had traced a current and forgotten how it ended. It didn't shine, even in light. It seemed to absorb reflection. Also, it felt dry, not in a normal way, but in a way that resisted touch. Like it remembered the cold better than it remembered hands. I placed it on my desk and left it there for hours. I told myself I wouldn't try it on, probably some mean-spirited prank by local kids who think grief makes you a fair target. Not like I was that sad about it, but still, screwing with the dead is a line. Around midnight, I gave in. I just wanted to see how it fit. It slid on tightly too, tightly like it didn't belong there. Then, suddenly, it loosened, not like it was stretching, but like my finger had adjusted to make room for it. The brass felt heavier than it looked, heavier than any ring that size should feel. There was a moment where I caught my reflection in the window and thought I saw a hand resting on my shoulder. I quickly took it off. That was it. No dramatic pain, no voice, no vision. But the skin beneath the ring looked slightly wrinkled, like it had been submerged. I shoved it into a drawer and shut it tight. I'm a paranoid person by nature, and wanted to make sure it stayed put. I didn't throw it out though. What if it really was from my grandfather? That night, I woke up twice. The first time, I thought I heard footsteps faint. Wet footsteps, not on the floor, but above me. One slow step at a time, like someone was surveying the room. The second time, it was the dream. I was underwater. My arms limp, my feet numb. I wasn't sinking, but wasn't floating either, just simply existing. No light above, no darkness below. Just cold, and a distant creaking, like old wood. Something touched my ankle. I couldn't scream. I opened my mouth to try, and the water didn't rush in like it should. I woke up coughing in a cold sweat. For a second, I really thought I was still under. When I got up, I checked the drawer, just to be sure it was still there, still cold, still dry. The next morning felt like a hangover I hadn't earned. My mouth was dry, my eyes stung, and I had that weird sensation in my eyes like I'd cried in my sleep. It was Saturday, thankfully. I made coffee and sat by the window. It had rained in the night. The street was soaked, but my porch looked wetter, like someone had deliberately sprayed it down. I thought about calling my mum. Maybe she'd know something about the ring, or about him. But before I could even reach for my phone, someone knocked. I groaned, assuming it was the neighbor's kids again. Maybe they kicked a ball over to my yard. I was wrong. 3 people. 2 men, 1 woman, all in dark coats that looked too dry for the weather. They studied me, not like strangers, like professionals. Their eyes lingered on my hands, out of instinct. I tucked them behind my back. "Sorry, can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound casual, and miserably failing at it. "It's been worn, hasn't it?" the woman coldly asked. "And you took it off? That's worse." One of the men stepped forward, looked past me and down the hall. His expression was hard to read. Disgust or disappointment, maybe. The woman continued, "It belongs to you now. We don't take what's bound." They stepped back. "If the dreams worsen, we'll be back." And then they were gone. I shut the door, rushed over to the drawer again. They never mentioned the ring, not directly, but I knew. What else could it be? The ring was still inside, still cold, but the bottom of the drawer was now damp. The rest of the day dragged by like a fever. I didn't know I had. I tried to ignore it, but how could I? These people looked too official, too prepared. I went online, half expecting to find some dumb arg or viral campaign. Nothing. Just forums speculating about cursed objects. Some creepypasta blogs. One dead thread about things you shouldn't inherit. Their story didn't match mine. I didn't call my mum. Didn't want to worry her with something I couldn't explain. Instead, I opened the box of my grandfather's things the hospital had given me. Logs, paperwork, old dive maps. He was meticulous, even after he stopped working. Every document labeled dot at the bottom, tucked beneath a large folder. I found a journal, leather-bound, frayed along the spine. First half was technical scribbles, dive depths, sonar readings, brief weather notes. The second half was different. Some pages were smeared with water, others torn, a few completely blank except for the impression of words that had been written and scraped away. One line stuck out, in shaky, almost unintelligible handwriting. "It's safer when I wear it, but it never sleeps," so I couldn't stop reading. It wasn't chronological, there were no dates, no order, just scattered thoughts, some repeated again and again like he was afraid he'd forget them. Completely different from the first half. Wearing it calms the steps never take. It offered watches through reflections. I should have left it there. I should have left it there. I should have left it there. The handwriting changed over time. Neatish letters gave way to frantic slashes, words written over themselves. Entire lines crossed out with such pressure they tore out the page. It was like watching someone drown in their own memories. Then I turned the page and saw my own name. Just once. He will take it if I'm not careful. He's the only one available. I have to be buried with it. I closed the journal. Just stopped. My skin felt itchy. I was shaking. I wasn't sure if I was angry or scared. Probably both. I didn't go to the drawer that night, even though I thought about it. I should wear it. It'll be safe then, according to my grandfather. But I didn't, and that was a mistake. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to the sound of water running, but not from the bathroom, from the walls. At first, it was only a trickling sound, like a leak behind the plaster. Then I realized the floor felt damp. When I turned on the lamp, there was a thin layer of water had pooled beneath my bed, but the ceiling was dry. It wasn't coming from outside. The room felt wrong. It felt tilted, like the air pressure changed and gravity wasn't sure which way it wanted to go. I stepped carefully, barefoot, across the room. My hands were trembling again, not from the cold, but something else. Like something was about to knock and I was already opening the door. I reached the drawer. For what felt like the 100th time these past few days, it was shut. But the wood beneath had darkened, warped like it had been soaked inside and out. The floorboard creaked beneath me, not from my steps, but from something inside of them. They were shifting, pressing upward. I grabbed the drawer handle and yanked it open. The towel I placed around the ring was drenched. Black water leaked from the corners, spilled onto the floor. Dark, unclean water. The ring lay in the center, untouched. Still dry. Then, as if it was waiting for me to see it, the lights went out. Every bulb in the house, at once. There was no flicker or warning, but an instant snap, and then silence, a deep, unnatural silence. And then a knock. Not at the door, but at the window. I turned slowly toward it, a small rectangular window which was completely fogged over except for one part, right at the center. 5 streaks, like fingers, had cleared a patch of condensation. They were on the inside. Then came the footsteps, not above or below, but from behind me. I spun around, panting heavily but confronting. Nothing, just a soaked carpet, splashed in a trail of bare footprints leading from the hallway. I heard a faint whisper around me. I thought of the journal and its contents. I had to wear it. I don't know what it was, but I had to place it on my finger to be safe. Questions raced through my mind. Why would my grandfather give me this? Why not tell me anything about it? Why behind? I heard another knock at the window, but this time, it was more like someone pressing their entire palm flat against the glass. I turned and finally saw what's been haunting me. Something standing, though a better world would be forming, like fog thickening into shape, a silhouette behind the glass. Too distorted to describe. It wasn't made of flesh or shadow, but of moisture, pressure, and the memory of drowning. It pulsed slightly, with each breath I took, like it was echoing me, trying to find the rhythm of my lungs. Its edges shimmered, not from light, but inconsistency, as if my eyes couldn't agree where it stopped and started. Every time I blinked it shifted subtly, taller, then broader, then wronger. I couldn't see a face, but I know it was looking at me. I took a step back. The shape moved forward, still behind the glass, but now its outline pressed against the surface, not like a person, but like pressure. Like the window was the only thing holding back something dangerous. And then 5 fingers bloomed outward. From the fog, perfectly spaced. I didn't push, but rested, as if waiting to be let in. I didn't scream, I didn't move. My breath caught in my throat like it was already underwater. I started backing out. Although the figure seemed to be following me from behind the glass, the air was thick with the smell of salt water. I almost gagged when I realized that my back hit the drawer. The ring was practically humming, begging to be worn. I felt it vibrate all the way in my skull. I slipped it on, hoping for the best, and instantly the window was clear. There was no fog, no shape, no water in my room, just silence and my haphazard breathing. The next morning, I sat by the window. The rain had stopped. The porch was dry again, too dry, not even dew, just sun-soaked wood, like it had never held water. I hadn't taken the ring off since, not even to shower. It clung to my finger now. The cold wasn't as sharp anymore. It felt like it was waiting. I went back to his journal, turned to the middle pages I'd only skimmed before, gave it to the diver I met a few weeks ago. 3 days later, he was found dead. An accident. Ring was in my mailbox the next morning. Tried again. Pawn shop this time. Still came back. The shop burned down. I found it on my pillow. I left it in the sea. A week later it was on my doorstep. Up there also was a final entry, barely legible. I tried to hold it until the end, to take it with me, but I woke up with the envelope sealed, postmarked, my name written with a hand that wasn't mine. I don't remember sending it, but it remembers me. I'm sorry I hadn't seen the 3 in black coats since then, but I've caught glimpses of black sedan parked a little too long at the end of the block, a figure across the street at dusk, once a woman in a raincoat standing on my porch, without knocking. I know they're watching, but I don't think they're waiting for me to give it up. They want to see what it does next, and maybe who it chooses after me, but for now it's quiet, no footsteps, no dreams, just the weight on my hand and the pull in my bones. The silence that feels like pressure before the water breaks. And for now, that's enough.